Hi, everybody. This is Odell again, and this is part 4 of my presidential address. And this topic is theology, ancient, modern, postmodern. Some of you may know that I graduated from seminary and did a graduate certificate in biblical studies. I have a master's degree in African American studies from Clark Atlanta University, and I didn't want to get a second master's degree. So I went to Bethel Theological Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, actually Arden Hills, to get a graduate certificate in biblical studies. And some of you may know that I'm studying right now more theology, which will hopefully lead to a doctorate degree, but there's a couple papers that are standing in the way. Anyway, in biblical studies, it's very much a right brain, where theology is very much left brain. They don't meet. They're related, but they're not. It isn't. So we had to take a theology course, and it's, biblical studies is very much about facts and figures, where theology is very much about how the culture sees God. And so we're going to start with ancient theology. This is what John Wesley was. He wasn't a classical or a systematic theologian. John Wesley championed this idea called practical theology, that our theology should be lived out. It should be practical. And so he very much subscribed to Augustinian theology, or the theology of the early church fathers. And this was heavily influenced by Africans and Asians. The Council of Nicaea was a debate over the divinity of Jesus Christ. Athanasius, who was known as the Black Dwarf, was from Alexandria, and he argued that Jesus Christ was both human and divine. Arius, who was also from Alexandria, argued that Jesus was only divine. Athanasius is also the person who gave us the list of the 27 books of the New Testament. And Athanasius would later go on to argue about the doctrine of the Trinity, as though the baptism of Jesus Christ doesn't give the perfect example of the Trinity, the Spirit coming down like a dove and a voice coming from heaven saying, "This is my son." But anyway, they need to have a council on that. And Athanasius argued about the doctrine of the Trinity, and that's what we accept today. In addition, not only did Athanasius argue the doctrine of the Trinity, Augustine also heavily influenced Christian theology. And so that's where we are in terms of theological understanding. Modern theology was introduced by Baruch Spinoza. He's a Dutch philosopher, and he believed that science trumped faith, and that the crossing of the Red Sea and the miracles that Jesus did, those didn't really happen. And modern theology was also heavily influenced by Germans. And modern theology, liberal German Protestants at that, not just regular German, not Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was too conservative, or Karl Barth, even though Karl Barth was Swiss, he went to German theological institutions, but he was too conservative as well. So most of our United Methodist seminaries teach German theology because that's what dominates theological education in the United States, and that is very much modern. I fundamentally reject modern theology. And then there's postmodern. Postmodern theology is what you see with all the millennials, and that Africans and Asians are contributing to postmodern theology as well, but it's much more global. And the United Methodist Church is a global denomination. We just haven't accepted the fact. We've been so American for so long that we've had these global members come in, and hey, they're nice, but these global members are about to take control of the denomination. And so the only theologies that fit that global aspect are the ancient and the postmodern.